Folks, we are under a red alert for extreme weather, taking aim at central and eastern sections of the United States today and then into the south tomorrow, kicking off a 3-day bout of severe weather capable of producing all kinds of weather hazards as we go through the next 3 days. We're going to outline everything that's going on, what we know, what we don't yet know in terms of how exactly some of the threat tomorrow and Sunday will evolve. We're going to take a look at who's going to see what and when, and we're going to get into all of those details in just a few minutes. My name is Jason Pritchard, and you are here at Cold Rain's Weather Channel. We typically on some of these shows have some fun little non-weather segments too, but we're going to skip that today just because of time and just because of the seriousness of the situation. I want to make sure everybody's paying attention to this and understanding what could happen. And if you have friends or family, share this video with them in those areas, particularly out here in the upper and mid-Mississippi Valley down to the southeast over to the eastern seaboard. Let people know that there's a severe weather event coming, that hazardous weather could be on the doorstep. Make sure everyone's weather aware that you know of. Share this video. I'll cover this today. I'll cover the next threat tomorrow and so on. So I'll keep you in the loop and informed. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. Like the video, comment in the comment section, leave a prayer request. First and foremost, we want to pray for you if something's going on in your life and lift you up and walk alongside of you there. So please don't hesitate to do that. Questions, comments, all of the above, feel free to list that in the comment section. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and dive in here and take a quick look at our hazards map. So we're going to start here. The National Weather Service every single day puts this out. And this is an interactive map, by the way. So we can go right in here and we can see all of the weather hazards active for which areas of the country. In this case, we've got a lot of wind advisories, wind warnings, red flag warnings where you see this pink. This is for burning and fire conditions. Very, very dangerous fire conditions, by the way, where you see these red flag warnings and this high wind, these high wind warnings out. Conditions are very favorable for spreading of wildfire. So don't burn here, don't throw your cigarette butts out, and so on and so forth. High wind warnings out for much of the country here in terms of our high wind watches for gust into the 60s, 70s, even 80s in some spots. Winter weather advisories up, winter storm warnings along the West Coast for areas of heavy snow up in the mountains out here with systems just crashing into the West Coast. So that is what, and if you want to, by the way, if tomorrow you wake up and you're under a tornado watch or something and you want to click on the area that you are, where you live, just click on the map. Go to this map. I'll have a link to this in the description section. And so you can click right on it and go right to, for example, we're here at Jackson, Mississippi. This tells us all about the risk for this particular coverage area, the timing of it, what the National Weather Service is seeing. You can scroll down, look at your map, click on your county. You don't know where you live. You need to know that. And find your county, drill in, look at the warnings active there. You can even read discussions around it, see your 5-day, 7-day forecast there too. So this is a good resource to use. As I said, I'll have a link in the description. But that's what's going on with the current state of the warnings as they exist today, or alerts that are out there. Now, looking here at our SPC map, the Storm Prediction Center puts out their risk assessment for severe weather, and they have 5 levels, starting with marginal all the way up to high risk. We don't have a high risk in place today. We'll see if they issue one. My guess is probably they won't, but they'll probably issue one for tomorrow, or potentially issue one for tomorrow for portions of the Deep South where it looks like a significant tornado threat will evolve, which we'll talk about in a minute. In the meantime, we've got a moderate risk over a large area from Iowa all the way down to Tennessee, surrounded by an enhanced risk, surrounded by a light risk or slight risk, surrounded by a marginal risk. And so that's what it looks like today. Tornado threat, pretty sizable area, 15%. A chance of tornado within 25 miles of a point. And this hatched area that you see here is the chance of any of those tornadoes being significant, EF2 or higher. So that's a pretty large area here. We've got a lot of wind energy, a lot of rotation in the atmosphere this afternoon, a lot of instability to create a big severe weather event here in the mid-Mississippi Valley. Wind, potentially strong winds. In this hatched area, we're looking at winds greater than 65 knots or 70 miles an hour. In some cases, you may see winds upwards of 80, 90, even 100 miles per hour. Yes, you heard that right, 100 miles per hour. This is not something to piddle around with today. This isn't your average, just, hey, it's a severe thunderstorm watch up, and we might see a quick gust into the 50s. This is a serious situation. A line of storms is going to develop, tap into that wind energy, bring it down to the ground, race off rapidly, 60, 70 miles an hour. Those cells are going to be moving. And within that line, there's a lot of rotation, and any of the storms that form, the vigorous storms, could produce a tornado, and even a strong tornado. So just be on the lookout for that. Hail up to the size of baseballs is also possible in this area. So all kinds of weather hazards exist today. So if we take a look at kind of what's driving this, we can look at our water vapor imagery. We've been talking about this big trough working into the west coast. Well, now it's in the central plains, moving east, spawning low pressure. Low pressure is going to get down into the mid to low 970 millibars, which is an extremely strong storm. Very unusual to see a storm that strong in this part of the country. The jet, you can see this kind of digging. This dry area here is just your upper level jet that's digging in, that's helping to really fuel all of this. You got some high cloud streaming in across the south, and then additional weather systems crashing into the west coast. This is going to help reinvigorate this trough tomorrow into Sunday as it gets into the mid south, into the southeast. So just an incredibly dynamic situation setting up here. Radar imagery. Rain out here on the west coast, California picking up a lot of rain into the Sierra Nevadas, eventually up into the Cascades. You guys are going to pick up a lot of snow in the Rockies, showers breaking out here in Nebraska. Just the start of today's weather events. Wisconsin, you're seeing some heavier rain, maybe a couple of rumbles of thunder up here, and nothing off in the northeast. So nice day up there. Temperature-wise, this is going to fuel the thunderstorm development. All of this warm air is going to set the stage for instability, and we're going to see lots of instability in here, where we're going to see also an overlapping sheared environment. Very dangerous situation. Up in the northeast, you're finally warming up, and chilly out west. Now, taking a look at our upper level winds here at 500 millibars, this is what we're looking at coming in here today. So we're going to start here. This is, let's go back, let's roll this back a little bit. So this is Friday morning, 8 a.m. this morning. Now this jet is really going to crank and kick and race off to the north and east, or east and northeast as we go through the day. Look at this. 3 contour low per upper level low. That's just going to strengthen. This jet's in excess of 140 miles per hour. The exit region of this jet puts these areas, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, right in the crosshairs of the strongest lift in the upper levels of the atmosphere that's going to drive vigorous updrafts in these thunderstorms. And this cranks on off through the evening and overnight hours. In the low levels, you've also got a very strong jet coming in here at 850. So these reds are in the 40s and 50s, and getting close to these browns are getting up into the 50s, and then the whites are getting up into the 60s, 60 knots. So we're talking about a 50, 60, even 70 mile. It increases with time. A 70 mile per hour low level jet, that's going to set the stage for a strong momentum transfer down to the ground. And so we're going to see widespread wind damage probably in these areas. So I would be prepared for power outages. I would be prepared for trees blown down. I would be prepared to just be out of power for a couple of days. It's going to be very hazardous over this section where that enhanced risk was. So be careful as you go through the afternoon. Timing is this afternoon into tonight. And on the southern extent of that line over here in southern Illinois, we'll take a look at this better in a minute. But we'll see a potential for supercell activity where there's a cap in the atmosphere. So there's a warm layer that's sitting up in the lower parts of the atmosphere. And once the heating of the day happens and mixing happens and instability takes over, you can get thunderstorms that start to, or updrafts or rising motion that starts to break that cap and punch through that. It sort of acts as a lid on the atmosphere. And if you get enough strong lift, you can overcome that. And where you overcome that cap, down here in southern Illinois, Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, or northern Mississippi and northern Alabama, you could have the potential for some strong tornado development here. So pay attention to that. This is your CAPE, fuel for thunderstorms. When you have a strongly sheared environment, you don't need a lot of CAPE, 200 or 300 joules. And look what we have. 1,200, 1,400, even 1,500 in spots down here, 1,000. This is more than enough fuel to get the job done for thunderstorm development, and that just increases, and then it wanes as nocturnal cooling takes over, as the atmosphere gets worked over. And then here is our significant tornado parameter. We look for values greater than 2 here, and we're starting to see those pop up. Look at this over Illinois, 4, 3, back here in Missouri, 2. And these just explode overnight. Now, other models show a little bit less than this. Some models show a little bit more. So it's the point is you have more than enough rotation in the atmosphere and shear in the atmosphere and instability in the atmosphere to create strong, potentially violent, long track tornadoes. So we're going to watch how this develops, but just be aware if you're anywhere in this area here, watch out for tornado development through today, particularly if the cap can break down in here. This is where we would see potentially some of your more discrete cells taking advantage of the environment and creating strong tornadoes. And if we look here at what the European shows in terms of its severe coverage breaking out this afternoon, 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock rock. We are rocking by then. Look at this, big line segments as we get into 8 p.m. tonight, and look at that. So that is really rocking through Iowa, and then you're starting to see some additional cells break out here in Tennessee. This goes through the night, and the dry line and cold front kind of move east and kick off additional showers and thunderstorms through the night. So we're going to have to watch what happens down here in Mississippi and Alabama, because that'll impact our threat tomorrow. Now, speaking of tomorrow, so this is our threat for tomorrow afternoon. Moderate risk centered over here over the lower Mississippi Valley, surrounded by an enhanced risk and a slight risk all the way up here. This is kind of conditional. There could be convection from Friday night that works this over, so you don't get quite as much of a severe threat up in the Ohio Valley. However, that may not be the case as well. It may wane before it gets there and leave the atmosphere less worked over with more instability to work with. But down here, there's a great overlapping of shear in the atmosphere with instability. So looking at the tornado threat here, a big area of 15%, a big area of 10%, and this hatched area again means strong to violent tornadoes are possible. Wind, another big area of concern. Wind over a wide area is likely. You all are going to see severe weather here. It's just a matter of exactly what mode it's going to take, what's going to be the dominant theme. Tornadoes, strong tornadoes, or more wind and hail. Hail is also a possibility, again, 2 inches in diameter or more. So all hazards possible in those areas. If we take a look at temperatures tomorrow, do we have enough warmth to fuel Cape and fuel those thunderstorms? Yes, we do. Temperatures surging 60s, 70s, all the way up to the Great Lakes, and plenty of warmth down here in the south. Looking at our upper level jet as it works in tomorrow. So tomorrow morning, look what happens as we go through the day tomorrow. A reinvigoration of this trough with this strong jet max diving back in once again. Our other storm system has occluded and kind of moved up, and we're going to see another little area of low pressure develop here in response to this upper level jet that's moving in. This is going to move in over the evening and overnight hours, just enhancing the shear in the atmosphere and enhancing the severe weather threat here. 850 millibars, so 5,000 feet off the ground. You see that coming into, look at this, big jet moving in over the course of the evening, strengthening as it does so, moving into the Ohio Valley and East Coast as we get on into Sunday. So lots of wind energy, lots of turning with height, lots of increasing of wind with height, lots of cooling with height. That's an incredibly unstable environment. And look at this as we get into Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon. These Cape values down here, 2,500, 2,800, 2,300. Very, very, very concerning to see this level of instability down here. So this is going to abate as the atmosphere gets worked over, as nocturnal cooling takes over, and then this moves on off to the east through the course of Saturday night into Sunday morning. Your significant tornado parameter, again, just kind of a multi-variable index, but it shows you where significant tornadoes are likely. And these values just are scary, actually. I mean, you're seeing values over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, look, 10, 11. I think this is probably too high, but it doesn't even matter. I mean, we're talking 4 or 5 is still enough to create a very concerning tornado threat. So the one thing that we want to watch for as we go through the course of Friday night into Saturday morning, does the convection from Friday night maintain itself such that it persists into Alabama, Mississippi and Alabama into early Saturday morning and keep this area socked in with clouds and cooler temperatures? If that is the case, the tornado threat would be lessened. That doesn't mean you won't see tornadoes. It doesn't mean you won't see severe weather. You will see tornadoes and you will see severe weather in this area. The degree of that is going to be affected by the previous night's convection. Some models show more cloud cover and less instability here. Some models show the convection waning out overnight, and so you get this really pristine warm sector in this area here that would lend itself to violent tornadoes. If we wake up tomorrow and we see that this area is going to be undisturbed by previous convection, that's when I think the SPC will pull the trigger on a high risk, because the parameters here are extreme. And so we're going to watch that as we get into the course of the evening. There's no way to know exactly yet how that previous night's convection is going to unfold. The European comes in here, so Friday evening into Saturday morning, you're seeing some convection. It's showing quite a bit of convection here in Mississippi and Alabama Saturday into Saturday morning here, and then into Saturday afternoon, it kind of clears some of that out and reignites it. This is showing supercellular activity, which is to be expected with the level of turning and helicity and shear and all of the things that go into creating an environment for supercells. It's a good environment for that. So eventually that will congeal into a line, and how that line maintains itself, there's still some question marks about that as we get into Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina through Sunday or Saturday night into the overnight hours. So that sort of segues us into our last threat, which is the slight risk for Sunday into Monday, and we're looking at most of this occurring on Sunday. Temperatures will be well warm enough to support good instability as long as we have good moisture return and the atmosphere doesn't get worked over with convection outpacing the front and moving in ahead of time and disturbing the environment. Again, it's one of those situations that we're going to have to watch. So Cape, we're looking at our Cape again, our instability, and the European shows some instability. We're getting into 3 and 4 and 5 or 600. This is, again, strongly sheared environment, lots of wind energy aloft, and so we're seeing that the Europeans bringing in plenty of Cape in here to get the job done in the southeast up the eastern seaboard on Sunday afternoon. The timing of this would be Sunday morning, potentially into the overnight hours, Sunday morning back here in the west, advancing east throughout the day. This isn't, again, not a rapidly moving system, because you've got a secondary area of low pressure that's developed, slowed the situation down a little bit. So you could see some training and a little bit of flooding here. We'll just have to see. There's some indications too that some of the moisture could be eaten up by a line that forms down here and races out quickly east. And some of the moisture transport could be limited up to the north. So we're going to have to watch that over the next couple of days and see what the models say about it and see what actually unfolds. And so that moves off Sunday afternoon and evening and gets you cleared out. The significant tornado parameter for folks in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, that comes down a little bit. You're still seeing values 1, 2, 3, 4 in spots. And so particularly over the western sections, we'll have to watch the rotation in the atmosphere as storms develop and work into that environment. And then here's the Europeans' depiction of how the line kind of holds together, or what it does as it moves east Sunday night. You see it kind of break apart up here in North Carolina, but it's still pretty strong down here toward the south. And then as we go through the day, a few cells develop, and then the line reinvigorates back here in the eastern sections of the southern mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas through the day, Sunday afternoon into the evening and overnight hours. And that pushes off by the time Monday morning is rolling around and the system is moving out. So the general wind threat for this, as I said, these mid-latitude cyclones are extremely strong. They bring in all kinds of wind energy, and instead of a hurricane, which has the max wind centered around focused around the center, centered around the center is not the best way to say that. So focused around the center, we'll use better words here at Cold Rain Weather. And so this is your mid-latitude cyclone wind field. Very, very spread out, gives rise to all of those wind advisories that we saw on the map when we first started the show. But look at this afternoon. The winds explode here with the deepening of the cyclone, the jet, and mixing happens. Mixing, by the way, when you hear people talk about mixing, you can mix up a cake, which is great. I like to bake cakes too, so we can use our mixer to mix up cakes. But in the weather world, mixing means something different. You have moisture at the surface, the air is kind of calm, the sun heats, you get breaks in the clouds. The sun heats the earth, the temperatures start to rise, or the temperatures rise, and with it, the air rises. The rising moist air that's warmed becomes buoyant, and it wants to rise, particularly if the atmosphere is colder. As it starts to get up, it will continue to rise. That's when you get thunderstorms and all of that. But mixing, it happens when the temperatures heat the ground, the air heats up, it rises, and then air replaces it up here. This air might be a little bit drier, and it comes down and it brings those drier dew points down to the surface. Sinking air cools, has a tendency to, that's the general process. Sinking air cools and dries, and so you get this sort of mixing of the atmosphere. And as that does so, if you've got wind energy right up here off the surface, and we do, those winds mix down to the surface, and that's why you get those gusts in the afternoon. If you've ever noticed that, you get gusty afternoons sometimes, and that's what happens. Is the mixing happens as the heating of the day takes place, and those winds kind of mix down to the surface, and the air dries out, which is why you saw all those red flag warnings through the day. The air is going to dry out. There's going to be a lot of mixing. You're going to get these strong winds, and you're seeing that reflection here. That was a long-winded explanation for that. But that's what happens. You get these big 60, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour wind gusts. As we drag this forward, you see those swaths just continue to expand east and northeast, and then east with time as that secondary system kind of sets up and brings that wind energy to the east. So much of the country over the next few days is going to experience gusts into 30s to 40s to 50s to potentially 60s, even outside of thunderstorms. And some places back here in New Mexico and Texas could get gusts in the 60s, 70s, even 80s. So we'll have to see. Sometimes, as I said yesterday, these wind maps can be a little bit overdone, but very dynamic system. And certainly with thunderstorms, you're going to see much more in the way of strong winds. Now, quick look at our friends on the West Coast, since we don't give them a lot of love when we're talking about severe weather, not a lot of severe weather activity typically out here. These systems are going to continually crash into the West Coast. Look at this. This is Friday afternoon, overnight, more rain, more snow for the higher elevations. Then Sunday, March the 16th, Monday the 17th, more rain, more snow. And this goes on and on and on out. The next system crashes in Thursday, March the 20th, and it's reset me to a different time. So I'm going to bring this back up here. Thursday, March 20th, we'll continue to roll this forward. Look at that, 21st, 22nd, 23rd. We've just got a strong jet pointed in. Look, another one comes in March the 28th. These things are zipping across the country, and sometimes getting stronger and deepening as they do so. And that's what's happening with this current system. We're going to see this continually happen over the next couple of weeks, with these systems potentially getting stronger once they get into the plains and re-strengthening there, potentially bringing more severe weather. So the West Coast is going to see a lot of rain and snow in the higher elevations. The central portion of the country is going to feel a little bit in the way of rain, and then we're going to really start to see some of these systems bomb out and drag up a lot of moisture out of the Gulf and create additional severe weather threats as we move through March and into April. It's a very, very active March. Looking at the total precipitation, by the way, the scale on this thing, you really can't see it all that well. White is 0. Light green, it gets on up into light green to dark green. That's 0.100, essentially 1/100 of an inch up to 1/2 an inch. Then you get to 1/2 an inch with these blues, dark blues, lighter blues up to purple gives you, that's up to about 2 inches. When you start to get into the purple, you're in 2-inch range, and then so on and so on. And you get in these dark colors, you're at 9-10 inches. And so I say rain, but it's really precipitation. It could be in the form of snow, but this is inches of precipitation, inches of melted liquid equivalent precipitation. If you get 10 inches of snow up here, or 10 inches of liquid equivalent in the mountains at a 10-to-1 ratio, that's 100 inches of snow. And so we're going to see lots and lots of snowfall. And so that's that. And then your temperature pattern over the next couple of weeks, like it's been the last couple of days. Look at this. These are 5-day averages, below average out for the first week or so. You're below average out in the west, above average in the east, in some cases much above average, and the whole country gets above average by the time we get into the end of the 2-week period. That is taking us through the end of March. So very active pattern. Stay weather aware. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I'll continue to have updates. Follow me on Twitter or X. I keep calling it Twitter. It's X at Real Cold Rain. Also on TikTok at Real Cold Rain. And I will be back tomorrow with another update. I may do a short later this afternoon, and as things start to unfold over the mid-Mississippi Valley, and we'll keep you posted on what's going on. And so stay safe, share this video with people out here, make alternate plans if you have them if you're in some of these critical areas, and we'll see you back soon. I hope you have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. We'll talk to you soon.